When you build a brand that people believe in, you don't chase, you attract. Hunter Hensley went from running political campaigns to helping elite athletes, entrepreneurs, and creators build personal brands that cut through the noise and command attention. And this one's important because this episode isn't about going viral, it's about becoming unforgettable. A lot of people think that branding is about logos or content or colors, even so. But the truth is, your brand is the emotional aftertaste you leave behind. Let me say that again. Your brand is the emotional aftertaste that you leave behind. And if people don't feel something, you don't have a brand. Welcome to the Mind of George show. This is where entrepreneurs discover that true scaling isn't about hacks or tactics. It's about aligning your mindset, your messaging, your marketing, and your customer journey to build and create sustainable growth that feels authentic and aligned to who you are. And I am pumped because my friend Hunter was on the show. And this one is not strategic, it's like surgical. And if this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. My job here is to cut through the noise and talk about what actually builds movements, not just marketing. And I'm excited that you're here. And so today, I got to sit down with my friend and brand architect and founder of Renaissance Marketing Group, Hunter Hensley. And so this one is a rare behind the scenes look at how top tier athletes and influencers and seven-figure founders are building brands that command attention without selling out. None of that surface level crap. And Hunter is the real deal. He has run multiple winning political campaigns. He has built brands for world-class athletes, NFL legends, and everything in between. And now his mission is he helps purpose-driven entrepreneurs build movements that actually move people. He's the guy behind the curtain making bold brands impossible to ignore. And he does it all without compromising who they are. And here's the thing that we all know now in 2025, and probably beyond, even if you're listening to this in the future, that attention is cheap. But belief, loyalty, that takes alignment and understanding how to do it. And if your brand doesn't reflect your values, if your brand doesn't reflect your mission, if your brand doesn't reflect your unique voice, then you are going to blend in and eventually burn out or fizzle away and nobody remembers. And so today's episode, we unpack a few key points: why personal branding is more vital than ever, the 4 filters that every brand must pass through, why you should never let somebody else write your voice, how to balance being authentic while being effective, and the number one branding mistake that even smart entrepreneurs still make, myself included. And so this isn't branding theory. In my opinion, it's a masterclass from Hunter in building trust, in building resonance and results. And so I'm excited for this one. So let's dive in with the one and only Hunter Hensley. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George show. I know I'm probably guilty of saying this too much, but I think the pre-conversations of the shows are way better than me ever hitting record, that I always forget to hit record. But there might be something to be said in the future about having a behind the scenes look. It's a little unfiltered. I don't know what you're going to get, but I really enjoyed today's because my mind is blown and I'm already thinking about like 8 different podcasts to do with this incredible gentleman. And so I am excited. I'm amped because I'm going to try to do this the best justice I can. I'll let him clean it up when we get into his story, but to go from painter and drywaller to high ticket sales expert in 4 years, personally collecting over 5 million sales, building an entire startup as a SaaS platform, going from Christian to black magic, back to the faith, all while caring about humanity and having a desire to donate $1 million a month to help spread the kingdom and the gospel, with a whole lot of, 77 Harry Potter books in between, I'm sure, that we're going to unpack. I don't know how else to welcome today's guest, but Hunter, welcome to the show.
George, I appreciate it, man. I'm really excited to be here. Very excited.
Yeah, me too. You, in full disclosure, got me activated before this call where I was like, what's the juicy thing? And you're like, most entrepreneurs, especially coaches and agencies, don't realize that how they're running their business is currently setting them up to be sued as we speak. And my brain went to, wait, my Typeform survey can get me sued by the FTC. And you're like, yeah, it's called adverse action. I'm like, what the heck is that? So can you just give us a mini TED talk, because I'd never heard this, never thought about this, but I've seen people punished for this.
Yes. So adverse action in layman's terms is going to be taking an adverse action against someone based on a response to a form, a survey, a questionnaire. Uh, you see it a lot in job interviews, right? Looking
Mhm.
at discrimination. Hey, you have to have X number of this race or that race or whatever the case is. But the same is true when it comes to sales and marketing and really anything in general. And you can't have adverse action. So the example I give is you're a coach, you're running 1,000 leads, let's say every 2 weeks. So a couple thousand leads a month through a platform, and you have a type form. Why? Because it's just industry standard. It's what you're used to. You ask a bunch of questions, and then every single one of you asks the question in some way, shape, or form: what's your financial capability to purchase my thing? Everybody asks it. And then based on that question and the other questions, you then either have your setter team reach out or your closer team reach out, or you say, hey, we're not going to be able to help you. And that can be looked at adverse action. Somebody's interested in what you're offering. You're running an ad to the public. And so when you look at public versus private, you're not running ads to private people, you're running ads to the public. Everybody can see it. So there has to be, according to our government, equal opportunity. So you can't just turn around and not sell somebody something because an answer to a survey, including income or ability to pay. And so what you have to do is be able to figure out a way around the rules. I love the law. I don't like following the law to the letter. I like figuring out, okay, the law is written by these people who clearly don't want to live underneath the rules that they set. So how do they write it in a way where there's loopholes? Legal loopholes that you can go through that cost you nothing, they can't get in trouble for. And then how do we follow those loopholes? Right. And so with the software that we built, we're able to do that. But the big issue that I see is most people don't even understand what adverse action is. And
Mhm.
that, while you're probably getting away with it now and you probably have gotten away with it for the last few years, could get you in trouble. And we all know the FTC is no joke and they don't like the coaching space. There's a reason there's not a lot of lenders in the coaching space because it's unregulated. It's essentially the Wild West.
Yeah.
No institution, no governmental governing body wants anything to do with the coaching space. And it goes deeper. The reason why, because they want their little workers who work a 9 to 5, who make the wheels go around the bus and not have people who are free and can create their own freedom. Right.
Mhm.
But it's tough because if you start doing really well in the couple million, 10 million, 20 million, 50 million, $100 million a year mark, the FTC will take a deeper look at you,
Yep.
especially when you have people who complain. And we all know that you have these Karens. It actually reminds me, there's a story. So I was selling for a coach who taught sales coaching.
Mm.
I went through his program. That's how I got into sales coaching. I'm sure we'll get into it later. But uh, in the span of a week, I personally spoke to a couple of people who literally couldn't talk. They did the typing thing and then the computer spoke for them. And I know other people in the company also spoke to somebody like that within the span of a week or two. It was like 5 or 6 people. It's kind of weird, the timing of it. And then we had a meeting because our team, like that company, had their legal department who said, hey, every single one of you as a setter literally told these people they can't do this thing. They have some sort of impediment, but you cannot tell them that and then not book them a sales call. It's not legally allowed. So that was the first kind of
Mm.
intro into an adverse action. And I didn't understand it at the time.
Yeah.
But now as I kind of go through and as I study the laws, and I've read pretty much all of the United States Code. I've read most of the FCRA for fun because I enjoy it. There's a lot of stuff in there. And I'm kind of a nerd like that. And, and I learned, early on, that's what adverse action is. And now seeing that, it's such a widespread thing that people just don't care about.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what a lot of us are accustomed to seeing is like, because this happened a couple of months ago, the FTC makes notice people making revenue claims, right? Or like promising a certain number
Yep.
coming up. And then all of a sudden, one example is made, and everyone's like, whoa, like, so they regulate it by making an example and scaring everybody else. And I've heard of this. I'd never heard of adverse action before until you. But like similarly to that example, like there was an e-com site that I was a part of that we were scaling, and they got blackmailed because something on the site wasn't accessible in like it couldn't voice to text the right way. And then we had to dig in and get lawyers, and we figured out there was laws around this and making the site compliant. But I've never thought about it or heard about it in the lens of qualification. So I have and this might be a layman's question. If somebody has that on their type form of like, how much revenue do you make? Can you invest in this? It's not that they have that, it's that they make an action without giving them an opportunity, right? So like they don't book a sales call, or they automatically decline somebody that would make it an adverse action.
Yeah, exactly. So if you basically don't allow them the opportunity to look at what they're interested in looking at and what you're advertising to the public, it's really important to understand the difference between public and private. Private is you meet somebody in person or on the phone and you have a conversation and you decide to sell them something, but they didn't know anything about what you did. It's all privately done. It's two
Mm.
human beings doing something in business.
Mm-hmm.
The public is, you're pushing ads. You can't control who sees it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yes, there's a pixel and yes, you can train it, but it's still public facing. You're using a public platform to push to the public people. So you have to have a even distribution and even opportunity, or, equal opportunity.
Yep.
But in this sense, so yeah, you're not allowed to, the question is okay. Nothing wrong with it. The issue is now your team knows. Well, if your sales rep gets on with somebody who says, maybe the question is like, are you broke or not? And somebody says yes. Well, your sales rep's not even going to give them the same type of call, because mentally, as a sales rep, I've been there. I
Yep.
know that they don't have money. I'm just going to literally get on and say, hey, it's $15,000. And then they could say, well, I can't afford it. Cool. Didn't think so. Bye. And it's like, you just can't do that. You have to give them the same experience, unless you work through a loophole and you figure out, hey, all we have to do is get their consent and use verifiable information in order to be able to make that consent actually a legal thing. Something like, hey, let's run a credit report, or the legal definition, a consumer report, see a financial picture, get their consent to do so on the front end and to personalize their experience with that. And now when somebody doesn't have the money to buy the $15K thing, but they can buy your $97 a month thing, well, then the next thing they see is the next page is a $97 a month checkout page. You can do that because you've protected yourself using consent. So you're getting the public's permission to do this and using their verifiable information, not just something they say.
Yeah. So one question about this is, and I'm just like thinking through, because when we talk about advertising, like I understand paid advertising, would, posting Instagram reels or TikToks or YouTube shorts be considered, public, like an advertising because it's owned media?
You're using a public facing platform and your page isn't private.
Got it.
Right. And so, I mean, we could go really far down the rabbit hole of like a sole proprietorship, like
No,
you
we don't have
as
to
an
go
individual.
that deep, but I'm just like, for paid advertising, I think everybody, but I think the definition of public.
Public definition of public is anything that you're doing that the public can be a part of or get to. Example being, if you walk into a police station, it is a public building. Any government building is a public building. We're supposed to be able to be in there. We're supposed to be able to film. We're supposed to be able to audit. It's our building. Same thing. You're using Facebook, which is a public facing company, to push out to the public. It doesn't matter if you're using paid traffic or organic, it's all public facing. So that would be a public thing.
Okay, yeah, that helps clear it up, because that makes a lot of sense. So here's my advice to everybody: look into this. But I'm going to ask a question about this too, because you mentioned SimpleCheck. So this is kind of a segue, because I've looked and dove into the site, and I'm like, okay, cool. Can you give me an overview of like what it actually is and what it does? Because now it's starting to make a lot more sense to me.
Yeah. So SimpleCheck as a organization standpoint is a data company. Where we run a soft credit report and we're able to tell you pieces of that report so you can make financial decisions and understand who is what and who to talk to. We took it a step further and we developed something called SmartForm, and it basically replaces your Calendly and your Typeform. And so it's a calendar booking or a lead capture form, and then you can have questions in there. But the important part of it is we built something called SmartRoute. So based on their actual financial verifiable information, and the consent language that they have to check a box that says, I confirm I'm 18 years older and the information is my own, and I'm providing your business and its affiliates written authorization to, what is it, to pull my consumer report to personalize my experience. So they check mark it, they hit enter, and then Smart Route kicks in and it goes, well, based on your credit is a 750, you have $30,000 available across all your credit cards. Cool. It's a $10,000 program. You get to go straight to a closer. Or, hey, you have a 620 credit score, but zero available credit. We probably need to get you onto a setter's calendar. Or it's like, hey, you have a 620 credit score, but $5,000 to spend. Well, let's push him to a low ticket. Right. And so we were able to route people based on that profile because they gave us that consent, all at top of funnel.
That makes a lot of sense. So I think when we were talking before, when you guys launched this, you started, I think, in like the dental space. So this, and I'm just reiterating what you heard to make sure I heard it right. So replaces your Calendly, your Typeform to operate in like your sales pipeline, whether you're a coach, a consultant, you're selling products, services, offers, to basically function on the front end, which also qualifies people and then gets consent for you to personalize that experience, but also helps you as a company basically know more than you might be pulling out on a call or having to ask questions or do all that stuff. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly. And so one cool thing, because I like numbers, uh, on average, having a type form that asks some sort of financial qualifying question costs between $7 and $9 on the test that we ran, about 100 people, 100 businesses, between $7 and $9 per application submitted with that question.
Mm.
Or you don't even ask that question. So you save some money, covers the cost of SimpleCheck if you're using SimpleCheck, but you don't ask that question. You get to save some money, still have all of that data, and you're still able to optimize your sales team and then optimize your pixel on the back end with that data to say, hey, give me more people that look like Bob, who has an 800 credit score, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 available to spend, etc.
Mm. Yeah, my wheels, the marketer in me, my wheels are spinning. I'm like thinking about clients right now. I'm like, oh, we're going to be looking at this. We're going to be looking at this. We're going to be looking at this. I love it. So to even tie this together to the first thing you said, so basically it also provides protection to not be in that FTC bucket of like, even if they look, right? Because you did say this, and this is how it works, is they don't look until you get big enough to pay attention to, and then they look and they're like, how do I come get involved in this, right? But this basically prevents you from falling into the bucket of adverse action as well, because they're consenting, they're giving that, but you're also integrating these tools that help. Basically, I can't think of a business that wouldn't, but primarily like service-based
Yep.
businesses, right? Digital products, things along, like basically everything that we all know. And if your Stripe account has ever been shut down, this is for you.
Yep.
Kind of people and businesses is the easiest way to think about it. So now I have to naturally ask, how do you go from painter drywaller, and I heard the course, right? So you end up learning sales, to that, to then collecting and selling, to then probably do what is the hardest thing to do as an entrepreneur, which is like start a SaaS platform, like actually a data software company. Like what is that evolution like? Like how did we get here?
Yeah. I'll start even further back. So my dad ran True West Credit Union's mortgage department for the country. So I
Okay.
got to watch him be in the financial world, but then he left
Mm,
in 2008 when the market crash happened and started a nonprofit housing counseling agency and other things at the same time. Like we did Amazon FBA stores, we did other things, like very entrepreneurial. So I got to see that from when I was very young. And once I turned 18, I joined my first MLM and I went through that. And then I joined another one because I knew like the 9 to 5 jobs or the retail or the the food industry that I was restaurant industry that I was working in, it wasn't what I wanted to do long term. I always had these bigger visions of, that New York high rise penthouse office looking out over like CEO, uh, something. And I didn't know what it was. And then I saw an ad when I was 20. This was back in 2020, towards the tail end of it. I saw an ad for a sales training program. It was like, hey, you don't have to be a sleazy sales guy to actually sell. You just need to learn how to have a good conversation. And so I went through the program. I ended up paying one payment out of the 5 that I was supposed to have because I was a painter. That was what I'd been doing for the last 5 years, and didn't have a lot of money doing it. But I went through and I got on their sales team. And at the time, not having any faith, didn't believe in God, I was like, look what I did. And not realizing God literally has orchestrated my life to put me in the place that I am now 100%, even when I didn't believe in him.
Mm-hmm.
But went from there to becoming from the worst setter on their team, literally getting sat down after 2 weeks. They said, hey, you have 1 week or you're going to get fired because you suck. So, fair. And within that week, I became the best setter on the team. Highest set to close rate, lowest no-show rate. I was the best on the team. So much so where they changed their entire setting process to what I was doing. And then moved straight into closing and was horrible, frankly. Wasn't great. And the reason I wasn't great was because I had to fall into their process of sales again. It's like, no, this is what works. It didn't work for me in setting, and so they changed everything, but they would not budge on allowing me to sell the way that I wanted to and go through a process that I wanted. So after probably 2 months of just back and forth constant battle, I realized that wasn't the place for me to be anymore, and I left. And I did some other sales, and I got a part-time thing coaching some agency owners with a guy named Alex Shalinsky, just teaching them how to set appointments for their agencies. And I was given great friendships, the ability to connect really well with people. That's a gift that I have. And through a connection, I was able to literally work my way into running a sales team for a company that wanted to start the same type of sales program or sales training program as before that I'd worked on. And I had connections to the lenders. I had connections to a couple of other things. I knew the structure. So on that call, I was just giving them everything, giving away value. Like they could have taken everything I told them, built it, and never paid me $1. But then they finally asked for one last thing. And I realized I need to make sure I get paid and take care of myself. So I said, cool, I'm happy to do this for you, but I want to work with you guys. And they said, cool, yeah, you want to be a setter? You want to be a closer? I said, what? No, I'm going to be your VP of sales. I'm going to run the whole thing and we'll make a bunch of money and we'll all have fun. And so we did that. We made, within the first 2 weeks, we collected like $110,000, $115,000 and built it until they got scared because the FTC came and started poking around in the other company's business. And so the owner was like, hey, I'm a little scared. We're going to just shut this all down and go back to the agency stuff that we were doing. And I ran that team for a bit, but I had met a really cool person who's now my business partner. His name's Grant during that time frame. And he was looking for a closer for a financing offer called Free Life Funding, literally just helping businesses be able to finance direct to merchant consumer financing. And I gave him a couple of people. And then one day he's like, why didn't you apply? So, what do you mean? You would have asked me if you wanted me to work with you. So, well, this is me asking you. I said, okay. So I literally quit and started working with him full time. I lived in Colombia, so my expenses were very, very low at the time, but went full time. And within a couple of months, we built it to doing $150,000 a month, 95% profit margins, because it's all brokering deals. Like we got paid from the banks, didn't cost a business anything up front. So they're all over it, right? My pitch was, do you like money? They said, yes. I said, great. Here's the link to it to get set up. And it was really easy. And then we lost a lender after Grant and I got used to living on that type of income. We lost a lender in the coaching space. They went out of business because some coaches, massive coaches doing a lot of money every month, they decided to shut down and stop fulfilling on their 6 to 12 month programs, 3 or 4 of them in the same week. And then chargebacks happened and that lender went out of business, but they had a dental division. So we said, cool, we're switching out of the coaching space, going into dental. We know nothing, but we'll learn. And as we were doing this, the hardest part was getting Janice, who's been there for 40 years, doing the same thing with the same 3 lenders, to make any change, even though we had the best product, best for the practice, like the cheapest product for the practice, could finance the most amount, the least credit score possible, and the cheapest rates for the patients. But Janice doesn't care. She just wants to not make a change to anything that she's doing. And so we knew we needed a tool that would help push that. So we built SimpleCheck to essentially run a report when the patient's in the chair with the doctor. We needed a first name, a last name, a phone number, and a physical address. And then we would tell them, hey, here's the lenders that they're most likely approved for, et cetera, et cetera. And then we continued to grow that and realized there's a conflict of interest with a funding solution that's always top 3 suggested and us owning that tool that suggests. So we just shut down the funding entirely, just focused on SimpleCheck. And then we ended up being blessed with a really good relationship with where we're buying our data from now, which now we only need first name, last name, phone number, and email address. Exactly what's on your opt-in form right now anyways, to run this report. And I don't need a physical address. And then we launched that just under a year ago, 11-ish months ago, maybe 12 now, maybe close to that, and has been pretty crazy since, to build out an actual software that now replaces people's Calendly and stuff. But it's been a very crazy, weird ride. And I have friends who talk to me all the time who are just like blown away at 4 years ago. I was what a lot of people would consider a nobody, just painting apartments and doing drywall and like, that construction, just trying to get by to live until the weekend so I could go party and drink and, do all of that, to now owning a financing company, but we let that go. And now an actual software and a tech platform and a data platform.
Okay, so much, and I'm in love with this. And I'm gonna go all the way back to worst setter to best setter in a week in a second, but I also just want to highlight for everybody listening, just in that story of 4 years, that could be 40 years in that story. Like as entrepreneurs, like how quickly things can change. And you said a few things in there that I think are worth highlighting where you're like, okay, we don't know this, but we're going to figure it out. Right. And I'm going to keep pushing. And in our world, let's be obedient and, follow the steps and add value and solve problems. But like, that's massive. Like people hear my story and they're like, dude, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah, mine was over like 2 decades. This was like compression, man. This is like 4 years. And so I want to unpack like a little bit of like maybe your mindset or your view on it, because one of the things you alluded to when you were talking about, being in that sales role is that you didn't like their process. You wanted your process, right? And you went from worst setter to best setter in a week. What was the difference for you? Like what shifted, or what did you do, or what did you focus on, or what were you thinking? Like what was the story around in literally a week going from I'm going to get fired to now this company that I just got hired into is changing their whole process to match mine?
Yeah. The biggest thing was I had no other, like, it was like, what do I do the exact same thing for the next week and get fired? Or do I just decide, hey, whatever happens is going to happen, but I'm going to go out on my terms?
Mm.
And the people that I ended up not connecting well with once I moved into closing, like the leadership there, they were awesome people at the time and I really needed it. So I was told to read Ask and It's Given by Jerry and Esther Hicks. And I spent 9 or 10 hours literally in the car just listening, because I don't when I'm trying to pack a ton of a pretty decently sized book into a weekend, I needed an audiobook. And then I read, physically downloaded, like ripped the copy that's you can find online for free of The Alter Ego Effect.
Benjamin Hardy.
And I made the decision that every
Hunter.
day for this next week, when I show up, I put on my blue light blocking glasses and I am a different person. I'm the best salesperson in the world. And it showed up. And then I remember specifically that Monday going into it, the beginning part of that Monday wasn't great. And I was still doing a bunch of role plays, and my ex-wife, I'm remarried now, but my ex-wife at the time, we went to Chipotle, and on the ride to Chipotle, I'm like, look, I need to just role play again. So we did a role play. Right then, everything clicked because I stopped caring about their process. I understood the end goal and the here's where we need to get to. And I know what I need to understand to be able to get them there, but I could do it my way. And I did it my way and it felt so good. And then from that point, I would say, so that point forward, Monday afternoon until that Friday, everything had changed. I don't remember anymore how many sets I'd put on the board, but almost every single one of them closed. And they were like, cool, you're good. And from that point forward, it had all changed. It was the alter ego effect and Ask and It's Given by Jerry and Esther Hicks, which gets really spiritual. And for me at the time, I didn't believe in a God. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
knew there was something out there at this point, but I didn't believe in God himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was tough, but I said, hey, I'm just going to follow it. Like, I was recommended this book. There's nothing else to lose. Let
Yep.
me just follow it. And I'd set my sights on, I need $6,000 this month. I don't care how it happens. That's what I need to pay my bills and to get out of this position that I'm in with a brand new wife. Like, I had to take care of her. I couldn't feel like a man if I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually it was 4,500 was I made in like basically 2.5 weeks as a setter. And I got paid money that I never thought I would see from something else that I was owed money for, $1,500, and I made exactly $6,000. It's like, well, let's
Mm.
try it again. So the next month, I'm like, I want eight, and so I made eight. The next month, I'm like, well, let me make the first month that I've ever made $10,000 in my life before, and I set every record on that sales team as a setter at that point, and I did it. On the last day, literally on the last hour, somebody on Pacific time closed one of my sets that it was super late for them. So it was already past midnight on Eastern time, but they were on Pacific. So it counted it was July. So it counted for July going into August. And I made the most money I'd ever made in my life and broke every record on that team. And it was literally all because of those two books.
Mm. Yeah, and I misspoke. That's Todd Herman's book. I've read them both, but I love that book, The Alter Ego Effect.
Yeah.
Todd is absolutely incredible, and so are the Hicks as well. I there's so many questions I have and places that I could take this, from obedience to the definition of faith and how you operate in it, but also as simple as a lot of the times we don't ask for what we really, really want. And then we end up hitting our own ceiling and getting
Yeah.
stuck in that repetitive loop. And one of the things that, and I know you talk about this on your podcast, like one of the things that you really celebrate is, maybe the word's not different, everybody's own unique thinking, right? And a lot of the times, like even in that situation as like a setter, you could go in the lens of like, well, I'm bad and wrong, like this job just isn't for me, right? It could be seen as a weakness, but then you had this willingness to like leverage and truly trust yourself and be like, yes, but I see it this way, I have to try it this way. And you turned that unique thinking into like a strength. Can you talk about that? Because I love that perspective. I've never heard that before, about like each one of us has our own, thinking styles, processing styles, pattern recognitions. But I think all too often we're put in a box and we're made wrong for it. And it's something that you like celebrate, but obviously exhibit it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it all started when I was really young, specifically, and I tell this story on my podcast all the time. But there was a specific moment. It was my job to clean up after the dog that we had, our family dog, and I hated it. And then I saw a commercial on TV for a little toy robot. It was maybe a foot big. Like, we had grass. It was grass and rocks. We lived in Arizona, and I wanted it. Like, Dad, I need this. This is going to help me do the thing that I literally refused. My parents would get so mad at me all the time for not doing this chore. And there was never any allowance either. It was literally, this is what you just have to do, period, to be a part of the family. And I just refused. And my dad said, nope, you're not going to get it. And then my grandpa ended up getting it for me for Christmas. And my dad was furious. It's like, it's a stupid idea. It's not going to work, blah, blah. And he was right. It didn't, honestly, was a stupid idea for that specific robot, but it taught me that I was stupid because of how I took it. I don't think that, like, it's not anything against my dad. He's a
Yep.
great father and he did absolutely the best that he can. And I'm a great human being because of my parents. And as a child, hearing the way that he communicated about that was, oh, I'm stupid. And everybody has their own situations like that, where then the rest of their life, they're programming themselves to believe whatever they went through is, the truth, instead of living in how God created them. And God created me in a way where I think differently than everybody else in the world. Just unique, not better than, not worse than, differently. And I usually can get really good results if I stay true to that. And I look at it as that difference will always start when we're younger and we'll recognize it, but then we will be attacked and we will attack ourselves for it until we can actually see that's what we're doing. And when I read Ask and It's Given by Jerry Nestor Hicks, I realized everything we're doing, we're just programming a computer in our brain. And so if I want something, if I want to program it, I have to stop programming the negative side of things. And it wasn't until early this year that it all really clicked for me. And none of those thoughts ever show up anymore. They just don't. I won't allow them in my brain because I am very smart and I think differently and I have great ideas. But that was the first start where I saw, I think a little bit differently than most people. And the hard part is most people, when you recognize that you're different and you act different outside their normal, you usually get put down because they won't accept it because they don't have the hardwire to accept it. That's just not who they are. They haven't lived their life like that. So they don't understand, like, there's this weird idea. How can this be better than the way that I've lived my entire life? And understanding that everybody sees it from their own lens. They see their own life from their lens, which means they're going to see your life from their own lens, kind of helps you not really care anymore. I care tremendously and deeply about every single human being on this earth. And I don't care about your opinion because you see it from your view and I see it from my view. Your view doesn't mean it's completely wrong. It just means it's not right for me.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. It's Schrodinger's cat theory, multiple truths at the same time, right? We're all looking through our own lens. You know, I've had this question pop in a few times as you've been speaking, and I don't know why, but it's just like prevalent on my heart. Like, I listen to you share these stories, right? And you look on paper, you read this story of you from painter, drywaller to, first 6K made on your own, like going from, basically blue collar work into like now selling something intangible, learning a new skill set, getting it, and then be like, oh, now I'm going to do this. I'm going to go into the financial space. And then like, this isn't going to go. And then I'm going to go into the dental space, right? Like there's this fire and desire inside of you. Like, has that always been there, or is that something that you've trained as like a muscle, right? Because I think, I had this question earlier today. Somebody asked me this on a coaching call, and he's like, how do you navigate the weight of all the things that you've experienced in your life that have helped you become the person you are today, but knowing there's so much more for you and you don't really know how to like step into it? And like, I keep hearing that in like how you're speaking. And I'm just curious, like what your perspective is on that or what your process is like.
It's a really good question. So for me, one thing, like, I mean, I would say there's a lot of stuff that my dad did that he could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that he did that was incredible was he programmed myself and my brother to believe that we are leaders and that we are capable of anything that we want. And so I think it's something that is trained. I don't think people are just innately born with it. I think there may be some people, and I don't want to put like limitations around somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that that's just how you were born. And it is reinforced over time by your family, by the figures in your life at a young age when we're most susceptible to that programming, right? It gets harder and harder to program over something that happened the older that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was programmed into me that I am capable of more. And the reason being is my dad was a pro tennis player. So I knew, like, physically, I didn't have to try any sport. I did a ton of sports, major
Mm-hmm.
athlete. I still play a bunch of sports. We talked earlier about pickleball. Like, I'm very, very competitive with it. I look at it like it's almost a second job. I train for it specific because it's a lot of fun, but it's that competitive drive. When I was younger, I didn't have to try. I was just naturally talented. I was very good, one of the best on any sport that I played without trying. And so understanding that I was programmed to believe that I was the best at certain things. Physical came a lot easier than anything mental because that's our whole family was two boys. Like, we were just sports oriented. And I had to make a transition and then do the same programming to believe it in the business world and mental world. So for me, again, I've had it since I was young, but I think it was still a muscle that has to be flexed, and you still have to train it. I mean, dude, there's like 4 days ago, I was thinking about it would be easier if I had a 9 to 5 job. Like LinkedIn sends me, hey, you could qualify for this like CRO role. And I'm like, cool. We're talking, $500,000 a year in salary. Like that would be great. And so it'll come up. And then
Mm-hmm.
every time it comes up, I'm just like, but then I'm stuck because they're going to want to do it their way, not mine, which
Mm-hmm.
limits how I can actually produce for that organization. I mean, in a perfect world, if they said, you come in, do anything your way, whatever you want, and make money, it's basically my business at that point, then sure, I'd consider it. But yeah, I mean, I still go through it every once in a while where I'm just like, oh, let's just go back to the social norm instead of staying in it. And you have to fight. You have to continuously program yourself for what you want.
Yeah. And I mean, we're surrounded by, right? Like Jim Quick's a friend who I love dearly, and I'll never forget. I was in his apartment maybe 13 years ago, and I was struggling with similar things like the negative thought patterns, like always finding the pessimistic view. And he just looked me dead in the face. He's like, dude, your brain's a computer and you're the one convincing it of all this stuff to be true. It's just running your program. And I was like, huh? And then you're like, what? And then I ended up in the personal development world, and like they would call us out on our language, like, why'd you say you can't, and why are you speaking with negatives, and why are you doing X? And then you realize over time, but it is this muscle that we have to be aware of. And I still do it to this day, where I'll like literally be in a keynote and I'll say something like, wait, cancel. Like, what? I'm like, cancel, and I'll say it again. But it's this muscle that we're programming. I have a question before you respond to that, though, because as you were speaking, right, I love what you said about your father and instilling in this like leadership, and also to tie it into what you said earlier, it's like, I care so deeply about so many people, but not necessarily about your opinion. What's your barometer? Like, where do you get your check and balances? Like, as a leader, right? I think I've never asked anybody this before, but like, there's a part of like having vision and having determination and like, I'm going to achieve this thing. But then there's also a part of it of like, but I can only get there if people come with me, and I can't leave a trail of dead bodies behind me. Right. So like, where's your barometer check? Is it God? Is it the Bible? Is it counsel around you? Is it mentorship? Like, I'm just curious, like, where you grow as a leader and who holds you in check.
Well, number one, you definitely can leave a bunch of dead bodies around
You
you. I've
can.
done it.
Me
Not
too.
good. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yep.
For me, the biggest one comes just internal. And I say it that way instead of saying it comes from God, because maybe there's people listening who don't have a relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
I went through a few years of not even like refusing to believe that God existed. And yet he still showed up in my life every day. And I can look back now and realize that feeling that I had inside was him.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes, it's God. It's also people around me. I have a mentor, Reginald, who's incredible. My wife, I trust her intuition on a lot of things. Like, she told me to go to Funnel Hacking Live. I was in Arizona. I had to fly back across country to Georgia, pack different clothes, and then fly back to Vegas. Literally landed, slept for 5 hours, got up and went to the airport. I didn't want to do it. She's like, no, I have this feeling you need to go.
Yep.
And some of the best relationships and further developments for what we're doing in this space have come from the relationships that happened there. So a lot of it is outside, but the one factor that is like above all is myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes further. I know it's God inside of me talking to me. It's the Holy
Mm-hmm.
Spirit communicating in like, hey, this doesn't feel appropriate, or this is what needs to be done. And I've learned, because of my programming, to know that I am a leader, that I can actually trust that, specifically around leading other people. A quick story would be one of our developers. I love him to death, and he gets very distracted. And there are times where I get frustrated because I'm like, dude, why are you so distracted? Like, here's literally a list of everything we need to get done in the next week, and you just built something that honestly makes no difference. Like, nobody's going to see the UI change in that. Like, I'm not a developer. I've done some things. I know it's fun. I need these 10 things done before anything else gets done.
Yep.
And I want to get like, I just want to go wring his neck, and shake him a little bit. But I also realize that that's the frustration inside of me for wanting to produce the best product that we can and then also help other people. But it's not how he's going to receive it, because he's also a lot like I am. You need praise. I like praise. Praise for
Mhm.
me, like, you sit here and yell at me as a football coach, which I've had, I just shut down. I'm like, I could care
Yep.
less anymore. But if you say, hey, great job, and here's how you do it a little bit better, like, great, let me go do it way better. Right. And he's the same type of way. So being able to kind of read that in somebody, it all starts with kind of seeing myself in them.
Mm.
And I've realized that there's a lot of people who've grown up with that hard physical, like, you need to do this, you suck, you're a POS, all of that. And they're trained to respond to it. And they would respond better to the love of, you did this well, but here's how we do it better.
Yeah.
And they would respond 10 times better to it, but people don't even see that because that's just not how they were trained. They can't even recognize it.
Hmm. Yeah, that lends deeply. I'm so similar to you in so many ways. Now, I'm following my heart. I just have this innate curiosity. Like if we were sitting at dinner, I would ask you like the same thing because like I love watching your brain process, but also knowing like one of your strengths or superpowers is like thinking differently strategically from multiple different angles and seeing things there. So now, like as you look back on your entrepreneurial journey, right, from painter drywaller to where you are now, like if maybe this is a cheesy way to say it, but like if you could go back and like share yourself like three things or like three big lessons you learned or mistakes that you made that you've now learned to avoid, like what were some of those things? Because you didn't just like change a little bit, like you changed industries, you changed delivery mechanisms, you went from hard skills to soft skills and then to tech skills and to like different departments like dentistry and finance. Like it's actually really beautiful to witness because it almost seems like impossible because it's like this reinvention at every single step of the way. So I'm like curious, like in your reflection on that, like what does that journey look like for you? Like what would be the lessons or the mistakes that you would avoid now in the future? I'm just really curious.
Understanding who I am is the only thing that would have mattered. If I could have gone back, if I could go back to when I was 18 years old before I got into an MLM
Mm-hmm.
and actually truly been able to answer the question, Hunter, who are you? Because most people, if I were to ask that to you, and maybe you know the answer to this, you seem like you've done a lot of work on yourself, so you probably do. But most people I've found, they'll either give you like a biblical answer, oh, I'm a child of God, or they'll give you, oh, yeah, I'm Hunter, or, and it's like, it's not the real thing. Understanding the real thing. And for me, what that real thing is who did God make you as? And then, so know who you are and live it, because I programmed myself to believe that I was stupid, that I was unattractive, that I couldn't connect with people because of things that happened in my past. I was constantly that I wasn't enough, not worthy. There's so much that I trained myself until this year when I realized like none of that is beneficial and it's all just from trauma, whatever level of trauma it is in your life, but everybody has it. So if I could go back to when I'm 18 and say, know yourself. Once you know yourself, live it. And you had mentioned the personal development world, and I wanted to touch on it because I love it and I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the personal development world teaches you that you're not enough as who
Yep.
you are. And there's always this like, I'm trying to get there. And that's so tough because God made you a certain way. You don't have to do anything to be that person. You are that person. But because you don't believe that you're that person, now you have to try to do all these things to be it.
Yep.
And so going back, if I could say, hey, Hunter, know who you are and then live that, I could have cut out a lot of stuff. And I also wouldn't want to do that though,
Mm-hmm.
because of the path that I've taken, I can now reach more people. I mean, I can talk to somebody who does construction, is a blue collar worker with the same love and empathy and understanding as I can to the next CEO that I talk to with their multi-billion dollar, multi-million dollar company that's wanting to figure out what they can do to like,
Mm-hmm.
increase revenue and profits and all of that. So while yes, I would go back and want me to understand that for selfishly, I think I had to go through everything from 18 till now when I just turned 29 to be able to articulate things in a way that everybody around me, whoever I meet, can actually understand to further the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important that I can do that, because if people specifically around knowing who they are, if you don't know who you are, you and I know at the end of times, there's going to be a judgment day. Jesus is going to tell countless people, depart from me, I never knew you.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it makes sense logically that if I don't know myself, how can you know me? If I'm somebody different than what you created, how do you know me? And I give this short example of, if I create a wooden boy, call him Pinocchio, and then in 40 years or 1,000 years or 10,000 years or whatever time frame, that wooden toy comes back, but it's no longer a wooden little boy. It's a plastic pickup truck. I don't know what I didn't create that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know you. And so for me, it's like being able to tell people and make sure people understand, if you don't know yourself, how God made you, and you're not acting in such, you're something different. And I don't want people that I know personally to get to judgment day and then Jesus is like, hey, I don't know you because you didn't know yourself. And I think
100%.
that's the biggest thing. If I could tell my younger self, and if I could tell anybody, know who you are and how God made you, and then live it every single day.
Dude, there's so much. And by the way, I tell everybody, like, I joke that I'm a recovering personal development coach, right? Because I learned a lot. Like, the tools I have in my toolbox now, incredible. That come from completely different, completely different. And I'm glad that you said this a minute ago. I'm actually just going to add a point. Like, this feels like a contributing point because it personally lands for me. Because you had said, there's people that don't have a relationship with God or don't know God. And I love you and I pray for you. I didn't either for most of my life. And in what you just shared about, like, you have to know who you are, it's now taken my hindsight to realize that those inner voice I have, like, do this, don't do that, or I feel called to do this thing, or this is what I want to say in that situation. That was my identity. It was like who I was choosing to share it with. And most of my struggle was denying that most of my life, right? To be a chameleon to somebody else's, or to fit into this meeting, or to get on that keynote, or to close that deal. Those were all the times that I denied myself. And then, I would fall victim to the trap. Like, who are you? I'm like, oh, I'm a husband. You're like, no, who are you? I'm like, oh, I'm a father. You're like, no, who are you? And like, now I do that to people, right? But I love the weight that carries of, like, really getting to know who you are. Like, and I even say this on this podcast, and this will probably land for you. It's annoying to everybody else, I'm sure, as I'm pre-labeling it. But I say the biggest challenge, especially with entrepreneurs, is that, like, we live in a bucket that celebrates addiction.
Yep.
And the addiction being that it's never enough. But I say that we spend most of our life and career avoiding the one relationship we're guaranteed to spend the rest of it with, which is ourself, right? Like, we can't sit in silence. We can't be with our phone. And I had a monk on my podcast. You'll laugh at this. He had spent 5 years in silence. And so he comes back, and now he's a hypnotherapist, does NLP. Like, he lived in the monastery. I love him. I love you, Alp. And he was on my podcast. And I think he summarized this whole thing once. He said, if you can't poop without your phone, you've never lived a day in your life. And there's so much weight in that, like, knowing yourself. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I'm sure there's somebody listening or thinking, like, yeah, but how do I get to know myself? And I think the thing that I would say to that is that there isn't a finish line. There's a curiosity and exploration that happens every single day of, like, really being true. And, for me, it's not being true to my heart, because my heart can lie to me, but it's being true to the Holy Spirit and, like, that inner wisdom and that inner guidance with the values that I think. But I love the answer to that question
Can I
because,
add to that
oh,
really quick? I'm
please,
sorry for cutting you off, but
no, cut me off.
there was one exercise that actually helped me understand 100% fully. This is who I am, live it. So I went to Arizona right before I went to FHL this year, after my wife told me to go. And this was for an event with my mentor. And his whole thing is, therapists are there to make, and he says, I'm going to have you one day say, hey, you're not going to pay me anymore. We're still family, but you're never going to pay me again because you know who you are, you've done the work, and you don't need me in that aspect, which is great. So we're at this event and we had done this exercise before, but it never landed. So I'd say do this multiple times. And I'll tell you the story. So he said, hey, on a piece of paper on the left side of the paper, write down all of the positive, like all of your gifts. What are you really good at? All the positive things. I sat there and I looked at that paper and I'm like, I don't know. I can't tell you. Like it was like a mental block. Everything went blank and I just sat there. So I made a decision right there because I think differently. I'm like, well, fine. I'll just write down everything that I tell myself that I feel like I am not. So like the way that I feel like I am, that I'm not good enough. And so I wrote down not smart, not attractive, not able to connect to people, like all of these things. Well, I didn't know, but literally right after that, he goes, okay, now on the other side, write down the exact opposite. And like, that's how you should, like, that's basically how you should be living. And so, or that's how you've been talking to yourself. Well, I wrote down everything like the way that I'd been programming myself. So I wrote down the opposite. He said, write down your gifts. And I wrote down everything I tell myself every day and program myself to believe because I couldn't see my gifts. Then I wrote down the opposite, which is all of my gifts. And at the end of it, he says, now look at this piece of paper. Everything that you just wrote down being like the opposite of the gifts that you were supposed to, if you followed what he said, this is what you tell yourself every day, right? Everybody in the room said yes. I looked at my list. I'm like, I already did this. Yes, this is everything that I tell myself every single day. So I looked at the opposite list, the list of like the good things. It says, that's who you are. That's how God made you, and I'll prove it to you. So then he has people stand up and get in front of the room and has everybody in the room start saying all of the good things about them. So he writes it down and then he goes, cool, bring your page up here. What are the things you tell yourself? And so we wrote it down next to all the good things that all the people said about this person just by looking at them. We don't know each other at all. And it was exactly the same. And so it's like it shines through who you are, shines through the other people, but you don't believe it. I would do that exercise at least 3 times. I would do it once a month. I need to do it again, honestly. But because I do it in my mind every day, it doesn't hit quite as hard as it does on paper. So I'd recommend doing that. Is been the one thing. It's like, yeah, it's tough to have an exercise or how do you do it? Because at the end of the day, I'm growing always. And that helped me so much in that one moment to realize I don't have to try to be smart. I am. I don't have to try to connect with people. I do. And it's not, I want to be clear, it's not a bad thing when somebody says, well, that idea is dumb, and you say, no, it is the smartest idea you've ever heard. It's not out of a place of arrogance and cockiness. People take it as such, but that's their own thing. If they take me being arrogant or cocky or anything, that's on them. It has nothing to do with who I am because I know where my heart is and how I'm actually showing up is exactly how God made me. And I do it every single day. And how they want to take it is how they want to take it. But I would recommend that exercise to everybody. And if you can't write down your gifts first, write down everything you tell yourself every day and then write the exact opposite of that on the other side of the paper.
Yeah, I do that. I've done that exercise at my events before because that was hammered into us at personal development. And then I realized that one of the biggest challenges I had in my life, this might get a little deep, was not because I didn't know what my gifts were. I refused to receive, and I didn't want other people to tell me because then my whole narrative and how I was driven in my life, my fuel was gone, right? Like I was the perpetual victim. It was perpetual, this happened to me. Like, here's the life of George. And I'd worked so hard to be this other person, but then it had that last big wall, which was the wall of receiving, like to feel like fully seen and like fully accepted and all those pieces. So then I would reject it and I would default and program my brain over and over of like, no, you're bad. You're a monster. You're a bad dude. You did bad things. You killed people. You did X, you did Y. And so now it's still, because you said this earlier, it's a process. You have to rewrite it because even to this day, I'll have moments where I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh no, like you don't deserve this love. right? Like, you're not a good dad, you're not a good X, insert Y, and it's go back to these. And that exercise is really, really powerful. But here's the one caveat for everybody: it's not an exercise to do in isolation. Psychologically, our breakthroughs happen when we're witnessing them. It's an exercise to do with people that you love, respect, care about, and even more so strangers, because they're unfiltered and they're honest. And so I highly, highly recommend it. I'm so glad that you shared that. So glad that you shared that. I got to start landing this plane because I genuinely will do this again. I could talk to you all day, and on so many different reasons and levels. But first is, um, obviously you have SimpleCheck, right? And then you have a podcast, right? Can you tell everybody about the podcast as well?
Yeah. So the podcast is very interesting. And I told you this earlier. I'm not trying to blow it up. Whatever God wants to do with it, God wants to do with it. I told him for a year and a half, I'm not touching a podcast. Literally, he's like telling me daily on my heart, you need to do a podcast. And I'm saying, no, I don't. And then once I realized who I was and that I have a lot to offer to the world and I accepted it and lived in that, I said, okay, I'll do it. So I started it. I do only interviews at the moment, where I just want to get to know people. And the reason I do this is because God will put it in front of the people who need to hear it. And all we talk about is life stories. Like, where'd you start? Who were you as a child? What did you go through in your life? What are the things that you tell yourself? Like, how'd you program yourself? Kind of a lot of the stuff that we talked about in my story, we just go through. A, I genuinely want to know. B, the through lines that I see with successful people and entrepreneurs, we all feel and think the same exact way and had the same situations happen to us in different forms, but the same types of situations happened to us when we were younger kids and
Mhm.
into our adult lives. We all went through a bunch of stuff and we're now trying to become better. So I do that so the next generation, 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds, when they're feeling these types of ways in the moment, can realize I'm not alone. People feel this way. And here's how they got out of it. And I do this with so many people because almost every person has a different answer on how they broke through it. We're not all the same. But if you can take a look at, like, I look at this like sales because I love sales. I don't follow one person's sales process. I'm like, I look at all these others, I take what I like, and then I make my own. I want kids in the next generation, or I mean, if they're 40 years old, 50 years old, and they're going through something, like understanding you're not alone. Here's a lot of different ways that you can actually solve what you're going through. I'll figure out the way that works for you and just go and do it.
Mhm. So what's the podcast called? Where can they find it?
It's called Rewired with Hunter Hensley. Anywhere you can find
Okay.
podcasts.
Got it. And then I don't remember the URL. Is it simplecheck.com?
SimpleCheck.com is our normal front facing website. If you're interested in Smartform, which is like the Calendly replacement, just do /Typeform, or excuse me,
Okay.
Smartform. Typeform.
Smart form.
Smartform. You can look there. There's a 7-day free trial. For anybody on the podcast, I'll actually get you over. It's a PDF document. Basically, how do you actually take data and use to pump back through into your pixel, whether you're using Cometly or Hyros, it doesn't matter. You can use either. You can use none of them to help backfeed data into your pixel to make your pixel smarter and get you better leads.
Yeah, and for everybody listening, we'll have all of this in the show notes. I kind of love it. We started with tech and adverse action and like how to protect yourself in this, and then we got into like how to love yourself in the process and be the best version of yourself while protecting yourself to have the impact and spread your mission, to then end with like, I think there's a really beautiful bifurcation or both at the end of like anything that Hunter shared with you. If it resonates, I would highly recommend checking out the podcast. It's actually funny. One of my clients and dear friends also has a podcast called Rewired, different name,
Oh, wow.
obviously.
Wow.
But check out the podcast. And also, like, if you're in that bucket of I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, I'm in this high risk industry, I use Typeform, I use Calendly, I never thought about that, this would help me, it would help my team. And it doesn't matter if you're a team of one, if you have a setter, if you have a closer, I think there's something worth checking out. And so I will put everything in the show notes for sure. We'll have Hunter's Instagram, we'll have his what he just told us about. We'll have SimpleCheck, we'll have the podcast linked. And so you can check it out there. And so, last question. It's a really, really easy one. I always do this with people. You've seen the movie Men in Black?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just imagine we just Men in Blacked everybody and they forgot absolutely everything that we talked about. But in this moment, you have the ability to tattoo a piece of wisdom on their soul that you would want them to take with them forever. What would your tattoo wisdom be?
It's a lot of pressure. Um, know yourself.
Mm,
Understand who you are and the gifts that you have. You were given gifts by the Creator. Understand what those are and live in them every day.
mm. Yeah, no pressure. It's a perfect answer. I'll wrap that up, put that on a fortune cookie, and you'll get it at Panda Express. I'm in. I always joke when I retire, I'm just going to start a fortune cookie company and just make them healthy fortune cookies and put like positive affirmations in them that like all of us have really said. And I'm like, that's my grand retirement plan.
Let's go.
That's it.
That's
Just
cool.
fortune cookie business. And then I'll help you help me find clients. So I appreciate it, man. Like this was a very pleasurable conversation for me, like very enjoyable. Like my heart's full. I'm grateful for you coming on, for being so open and authentic and transparent. And just thank you for sharing your heart and all your knowledge as well.
Thanks for having me, George. It's been a
Yeah, of
pleasure.
course, man. Of course. So for everybody listening, it's been another episode of the Mind of George Show. I say this too frequently. I will be annoying, but I mean it. Don't let anything you heard in this episode be shelf help. Whatever it was that landed, that tickled, whether it's the exercise of knowing yourself, like what do you love, what do you admire, or it's I should probably look at my process so I don't get sued, to the maybe I should give myself a permission slip and reinvent myself, or maybe I should set higher targets, or maybe I should learn how to love myself and reprogram my brain. Whatever that thing was that landed for you, I truly believe in my heart that God had you hear it today for a reason. But when you hear it, it requires that we take action on it. So my invitation for you is to take action on it, because information is poop and integration is everything. And so if I can support you, you know how to get a hold of me. I'm sure Hunter would love to hear from you as well. So hit him up on Instagram, check out everything you have to offer. And most importantly, remember that relationships beat algorithms, always, especially the one with yourself. So know yourself, love yourself, have a beautiful day, and God bless.